All right, good morning, everyone. My name is Paul Fletcher, part of Operations Hero. Um, Glad you could be with me today. I'm going to put my contact information up here for you to have. Um, Part of the client service team, you can see my email, paul@operationshero.com, and my phone number for support that goes to our support team. That's 919-948-0842. And then our email, support@operationshero.com. So thank you for taking part in today's session. We're going to go through and do an overview of HeroHQ, our maintenance software. So it'll get you familiar with everything from how do I get into the system and options for that to getting work requests and closing them out. So we're going to do everything in between A and Z in the next 55 minutes or so. So I will get rid of my picture and get to what you all came to see, and that is Operations Hero and HeroHQ. And just to restate, I will offer a couple places to ask questions. I want to see if everybody has everything, or if there's something I can key in on. If you're not sure about it, please let me know. I have the chat window open. I'll be monitoring that. So if you have any questions, you can chat them in. So let me know. All right. I like to start on our corporate website because if all else fails, you can get to the login right here. There's a orange login button at the top. You don't want to start the free trial because you've already got your software. And then it also is in the middle there, but you don't want to do the sign up for a demo or sign up for a trial. You're past that point. So you can always go to operationshero.com for that. And then I'm just gonna go through. I've got requester logged in. I have a technician logged in. We're going to log in as the admin, of course, but thought you'd want to see that. So what's interesting is I'm going to hit login here and in just a second, but I'm already logged in, so I have to log out and go back in as my my admin. But I do want to key in on support. So if you click on support here, you'll see a little write-up about us on support, and then our phone number here is also listed the same as what's on the PowerPoint, and then our support at operationshero.com. So feel free to contact us. We'll go ahead and get in. So I'll hit log in. I'm going to log out because it logged me in as my technician. But this gives me an opportunity to show you how to get in if you haven't already. And I'm going to go ahead and put this in the chat. So you have it, you can copy that out. This is our main login page. And depending on how your organization authenticates, we don't typically have logins and passwords. You do see that option down at the bottom, but that's typically for our contractors, folks that are outside the district. So if they don't have an email address associated with your school or school district, then they would be in here. Otherwise, when we set up your account, we added a domain, which is that at, and then the name of your school or district after that. So that's your email address part besides your name. And so you either authenticate with Google or Microsoft at your district or school. So when you sign in, you'll click on continue with Google or continue with Microsoft. We also have some options here. There's a straight to Google option. I'm going to put that in. So you can have that to hand out to your people if you're go through Google. And then we also have one through Microsoft. So that'll allow you to go right in that way. So I'm going to give that one to you in the chat. You can copy that out. So you've got a couple of options. Mine, the way we have it here is we authenticate through Google. So I'm going to go ahead and click on continue with Google. And then I can choose my profile of a few different ones. So I'll click on this one and I'm in my test account. So We're going to go over the dashboard here, which is what you log into when you get into your account. And let me jump back over. It went to my last workflow I had for IT. So you can see what I have going on here. I've got to get some PMs in. I'm getting really low on PMs. 5% is not good. Okay, so let's go over the dashboard. And then we're going to go into the nuts and bolts, really the set behind the scenes setup, and then I'll pause for questions. So across the top, we have our dashboard, which is where we are. And you'll notice I said workflow for maintenance. So I've got WO as my prefix, and most of you all will too. And you may see a couple things in here like events and then inventory. This is my test account, so we have a couple of different things. So if you don't have those, most of you will not have inventory because we're just about to come out with it. You probably saw Pat's update on that, but some of you may have events. But we're going to focus on requests for work requests today, calendar, and transactions. Those are our major things that we're looking at. And then we are going to go through and create a work order or work request. And you'll see that there's a new request button. If you have multiple modules, it may break out and say this. Otherwise, it'll say create request up here. The QR code is going to come into play throughout today. I've got an example here to show you how this can really help you. If you don't have one for your assets for tagging, you can also use barcodes. It doesn't have to be a QR code. And then we have our menu up here. You can see my name in the upper right-hand corner, and that's what we call our super menu. So we're going to be looking at this most of today and diving into that. We have an announcement bar here. You can have a system announcement that's here that will go out to everybody in your system and show. So if you have any updates you want to have on your home screen, you can do that. Now let's get into the nuts and bolts of what's on here. So our new and approved requests, nobody's really touched those except for maybe an approval. If you have an approval process, and whether that's at the district level or it's at the school level, you would have approvers, and we'll show you when we get to the workflow how you can set that up. But these will be those initial requests that have come in. They have not been assigned yet to do work. That moves over to queued. So in our system, we say the work is queued, and basically it has not started yet. We've just assigned it to the technician, and then they start those requests. So those are in progress requests. They're actively doing the work on them, and they are getting those problems resolved. And then routing requests really is kind of everything that has been routed to someone to do and is not closed out yet. So it's all these live things. Overdue would be things that are past their due date. So we want to probably look at those and see what's going on. Maybe they're preventative maintenance work orders or some things that maybe people just forgot to close out. And then closing out our work, what's been closed in the last month? And this is rolling 30 days period. So we've got 24 that have been closed, and then my reactive, so that's somebody putting in a request and needing help with something. So that's 88%. It's pretty good. My PMs are really low, at 5%, but you can see our closed preventative maintenance. I only have about 5 PMs in here, so that's not surprising. And then I've got a graph down here. Now there's 4 graphs. We're going to be adding to this, but you can see a created versus completed timeline, and this is a rolling 30-day period. You can see I can download these to Excel if I want to, or if I want to take this as a picture, download as a picture, maybe put it in a PowerPoint. I've got a board meeting, I got to show what we're doing. I've got the option to download these in that format, a PNGs, like a JPEG. Slightly different format, but same idea. Same thing on completed here. You can hover over things and see what's going on. And then by category in our system, it's category. You may be used to craft if you're using a different system before, but these are our top categories, and then same thing you can download as well. And then we have this kind of wheel or donut graph. Those of you in the Northeast, which I think everybody is, this is not sponsored by Dunkin' Donuts, but down here it would be Krispy Kreme. Anyway, in the inside, we've got our parent categories here, and then under on the outer ring, these are the more specific child categories or our reporting category names. So you can see how these are all broken out that way. So it gives a nice visual there for the counts that we are doing. Okay, so that's our home page. That's what we're looking at when you start to examine your data. Let's go into some of the settings here. So there's some definite differences in what we're going to look at. Let's just look at the overall account profile, and then we're going to look at the HeroHQ settings. All right, so we've got account profile here. This should have my school district name or school name. And then the domain I was talking about, this is what allows people to pass through into your account. So you can add it if you have different variations, like a town email address as opposed to the school district email address or school address. You can add as many as you need to, or if you had a recent email domain change, so you get everybody in. We've got our time zone set, our fiscal month start for the year. Most of you are July to June, so we have 7 there for July. And then we have our address in, and we have our subscriptions here. So you can see that. And of course, we can update a logo. So in this case, we've got one here, but there's also, it'll show up here in the upper right-hand corner when you change that. So that's the admin kind of nuts and bolts behind the scenes page. Let's look at your overall settings. So up here on the top bar are your personal settings for you, for Randy, for Matt, for Dawn, Michelle. You know, all of you all will have these. You can even, I'm going to come back to this one with the gear, but you can switch to dark mode if you want. This is kind of nice if you don't like the bright white view and you want to reduce some eye strain, then you can certainly use this, or you can go back to light mode. So you've got that option. I'm going to look real quick at the HeroHQ settings and then the difference between that and the top settings for you. So they will look very similar, but there's an important difference. So on the HeroHQ settings here, you can see that this is the toggle for all of my users to be notified by email. So if you turn this off, that means no one will get any notifications. So that's important. And then our 4 settings here are really for you as admins, or for the admins, or at least the bottom 2 are. The top 2 are for kind of everybody. You know, email me when a request has been assigned. So when that work request is assigned to somebody, when you're mentioned in a request, that's in the comments page. I'll show you how you can directly tag somebody in there. And then email when a request needs approval. So if you have approval in place, you can turn that on and off. And then on review on the back end, if you need somebody to look at it. So that work's been completed, but you need somebody to look at things and make sure the I's are dotted and T's are crossed. Then we have things by status. You can see a listing here of every status that's in the system. Approved. So I have these checked for everyone. So if you turn any of these off, people will not get them unless they go into their settings, which I'll go to in just a second. But you can see when I click out of this, the little pop-up notification, that's what we call a toast notification because it pops up like a piece of toast. So I'm kind of holding it here, but that means we don't have to always hit a save button. So if we make any changes, you'll see the little green pop up here, and I'm going to let it go. I'm going to get off of it and it will fade out. We can see labor rate multipliers. these do require a manual save, but you can put these in for you, and we'll show you where to put labor rates. So those are the overall settings here. Okay. Let's look at your settings individually. So if people want to turn things off for themselves, we click on this. The difference is you're going to see your name listed here, and then your time zone. You'll see your email. If you need to make any changes to that except the email, you can do that. And then your settings for notifications. So you can see it will use my last request for new request. So that means if I'm at the high school, it'll remember the last thing that I put in was for the high school, and that will be filled in already. And then my overall email settings, these should look familiar based on what we had before. I have everything toggled on for me. Now, you can see on the statuses, though, I've got approved and queued. I don't need to know when it started. I do want to see when things are on review, go to review, hold, and closed. I don't care about the other ones. So we'll leave those on. And then again, when I pop out of that, it's going to tell me I've saved it. So that's kind of the overall behind the scenes settings. The last thing I want to look at are users, and then I'll pause and see if anybody has any questions. So I'm going to click on users. You'll see all my people in here. You can see how we authenticate on this as well. Copy this email address and use it as my example. But the G means people are authenticating through Google. It would be a Windows window pane in there if it was for Windows. The stars with the line underneath mean they've come through with a password, a login and password. So you can see when people have last logged in and when they were created. You can also, over here on the right, disable the user. And you can update labor rates. I was talking about that just a moment ago. So if you want to put a labor rate in for someone, you can certainly do that. So I've got this one in here for Eric. He's a driver for us. And he does occasional work for us from time to time in my make-believe school district here. So you can see I've got my folks in here. I have my roles. You will see people come in as administrator or standard when you invite them in. Basically, everybody who comes in as standard, if you don't assign them to the workflow, they would just be a requester. If they were administrator, they have full rights. So let's look at that real quick. How do we get people into the system? Now, most of you, we did a migration of your work requests. When we did that, we brought your requesters in. If they were tied to a work order already, then they came in as somebody who had submitted something. They were in as a standard user. If they were on the back end of that and got assigned a work order, they came in as a technician. So we had that. And you probably want to go through and just clean up your list. Again, you can disable folks in this column here, and it doesn't eliminate them. You know, for reporting, you don't want any holes in your data, so you would still see their names on reports. They just wouldn't be able to put anything in anymore, and then you wouldn't see them in the assigned list in the workflow, so they couldn't assign things to them. So we can always download. Again, if you see that little box with a down arrow, you can download all of your users if you want to look at them and sort and filter and all that good stuff. You can certainly do that. All right, now how do we get people into the system? Maybe I have a new technician that's starting this week. I want to click on invite user. I would put their email address in here. You can add up to 20 in one sitting. Just separate by a comma. You can see I'm just putting things in like that. I'm going to just focus on adding one person today for our example. And then if we have our HeroHQ role, I'm going to not go over the event part, but I would have a standard here. Like if they were, you don't have to invite your requesters. I think most of you, we've given a requester guide. If they have that guide, then they can go through and create their first work request, and they'll be added to the system when it gets saved. So you don't have to go through and invite all your requesters. There is one scenario that I'll go over on the workflow where if you really wanted to control things, then you would have to invite them. But let's assume we're inviting a technician today. Otherwise, if they're admin, they had full run of the system, we would choose that. All right. So I've got standard here, and then I'll need to add them to a workflow. So almost all of you have this workflow that we set up for maintenance, and it has the prefix of WO, and then you can choose their role. This is where they really get their capabilities in the system. So if you have somebody who's an approver, the equivalent to that in your prior system that you're probably using would be like a site administrator 1. So they would go through and get those requests initially. They're like your first line of defense. If it's a valid request, then they can go through and approve it. If it's some wild and crazy thing they want you to do, like add a 75-inch flat screen TV to their classroom, or 2 of them, then they can decline that or cancel it in our system. So that's the approver. Contractor, again, is going to be somebody outside the district. Maybe you've got integrated pest management, somebody like Terminex, or you have an outside HVAC company. You want to send them work requests, you can do that. The technician, again, is probably what you're going to use the most. Those folks are going to be able to be the recipients of work orders, to be assigned work to do. I'm going to come back to this restriction part. Reviewers on the back end. So basically people can review what the technician has done, make sure all the I's are dotted, T's are crossed, labor hours are in. People put what they did to close out the work. And then my workflow admin is kind of like that supervisor role. I've got full autonomy to change the status on the work request, assign, put everything on those work requests. Technician, if I added this person as is, they would float throughout the district. They would have no restriction. They could see all the work orders. And then contractor, again, is going to see just what's assigned to them. So if I needed to lock down my technician a little bit more, I could do location restriction, and I could put in like the high school. You can just start typing in our system and it will bring that up. So in this scenario, my technician would just be restricted to Fletcher High School, and then I have 9 child locations underneath that. So it would allow that person to be there at the high school. I could also do a category restriction like HVAC, like this. Again, it's in this scenario, he would only be able to do HVAC work requests at Fletcher High School. You could remove this, and then it's just by category. And so maybe they did HVAC and plumbing, then they would be restricted to these 2 categories and their subcategories. Most of the time, you're going to have your technicians float, but just so you can see what the flexibility is there in that. So we'll add the policy. They're a technician here, and we would invite the one user. They're going to get an email in their inbox, and they should be able to go and join the district that way. And as long as they have that school district email, they'll be able to pass through. Again, if it's a contractor, they would have to create a password to get in. So that's the users. We are going to look at workflows as a segue into the next section, but I want to see if anybody has any questions. I don't see anything in chat. Go ahead, Randy. It looks like you came off mute.
I did come off of mute. The question that I have, and I think you may have answered it, but I'm not sure. In our district, that teachers are able to put in workflow, but so they would come up automatically as a standard user. We would not have to invite them into this, because if that was the case, boy, would this be very time consuming for any particular location where we have a person at every building that is like the administrator of their building. So, but like I said, teachers can put them in. So I just making sure that a teacher can go onto the website, put in a work request. will get it, but once they've, and again, like it is right now, once they've logged in, they're there. They don't have to keep creating an account, so to speak, or we don't have to invite all the teachers in as a work group to be able to put in just a simple work request.
Yeah, that's correct. So I'm just going to bring up your help guide that I made. Just as an example, we usually make these for folks. Let's see if I have the one for Goffstown. If I didn't make one, I'll make one for you, but I was pretty sure I did. Let's see. I don't think I made one for you all. So I'll make a note. I have all the ones listed that I've made. Thought I had made one for you. All right. So let's bring up the one for Timberlane. I'll make this one for you today and send it to you. I may have given you the generic one while we were waiting to do your import. So we'll make something very similar here. It can be a PDF, but I'll put your district on here, and then I imagine I think y'all are through Google, so we would just have that link for them to go through, and we'll replace that with Goffstown, New Boston, and then how they would get in with their email address. Click on the new request, the workflow, put in the category. I'll put your locations in here, and then they can put the summary and attach anything they want, and they have their settings here so they can see that. So that's when they get in, when they put that in, they will then be in the system. And again, you probably had some come over from your import. So you hand that out and they should be good to go. So I'll make one of those for you and send it to you both. I thought I had made one for you, but you may have had the generic version. I may have sent that to you. Because I don't see your district in the names here. All right, so I'll get that to you today. That'll be easy. Okay. Any other questions before I move on to workflow? Oh, on Microsoft. Okay, I'll make yours Microsoft. Good to know. Write that down, Randy. MS. All right, got that written down. I'll send it to you. All right, so we'll move on to the next thing, which is workflow. You saw me start to add people into the system and add them to the workflow. I call this the brain of HeroHQ. And you'll notice there's another menu that comes up here as well. So I can go to that. I'll call this like our accordion menu because it expands and contracts like an accordion. So let's click on workflows. And I have a few that I've created. We got a couple different things we can do here, but on the workflow, it comes up to the security tab. This used to be one long page, and we enhanced it to have different tabs. So it comes to security tab. Now, by default, we'll have this on, allow all users to submit requests. And to Randy's question, when we have this on, everybody in the district, as long as they have that school district email, they should be able to get in and put in a request. If you really need to lock it down, you can do that. You'll notice when I toggle this off down here, look down here, you'll see a requester. You'll see a requester column come up here. So that means if I really want to lock it down, I could add requesters in. And what I could do is if I could do a location restriction. So I could just say that, she could only put things in for Castlewood Middle. So we could remove that. Some folks are doing that for their principals or people who are designated at each school to put things in. Otherwise, again, if you toggle this on, then that goes away from the workflow and it just allows everybody who's in the system to at least put in requests. They will have that create button up there. They do not have to be on the workflow if this is on. So you'll notice I've got an approver, I've got contractor, technician, reviewer, and admin. If you're not seeing approver or reviewer, that's on the next tab, which is status. You can turn on approval and review here. If I turn these off, you lose those statuses. You then go down to contractor, technician, and admin. So if you want somebody to be that frontline person on the front end and be able to do that at the school level or even at the district level, you make them an approver and turn that on. So again, it comes in as new, somebody approves it, and it goes on to the next level, where maybe at the district level for the facility management team or the maintenance team, they would then queue that work request by assigning it to somebody and changing it to queued, and then that technician starts it. And once they have finished the work, they change it to review in this scenario, then we close it out. We'll go through and do that here at the end. So back to the security tab, you can see I've got somebody as an approver, I've got multiple technicians, I've got a contractor, I've got somebody set up as a reviewer and admin. You can be checked on both. You don't have to check everything here. If you're not on the front end of this, you don't have to be an approver too. But in this situation, Pacer is a reviewer and an admin, so it kind of makes them like the more glorified like supervisor role. You may be familiar with the supervisor 1 role in your prior software. And then this is a workflow admin for Preston. I'm in here as an admin, so I can assign and do all that I need to do. Change the status on the work requests, add in labor hours, add in purchases on there, so it allows me to do everything. You'll see this groups too. I can group people by trade if I want to. So I have an HVAC group, a grounds crew, after hours crew. I do have that requesters group if I do enable that. And then I have an MEP for my mechanical stuff, kind of, jack of all trades. So you would add, the way you do that is you would come in here and create a group. So you can see I've got my after hours crew. I'll use that one. Then you just add people to it. And then they would get, it would be like a blast here. All 4, when we add them to the work request, they would all get the notification that there's something to do. The leads on the back end could then put in labor. So if they put 30 minutes on there, then all 4 would get 30 minutes put on that request. So we'll show you that here in a little bit. You can deactivate user groups if you don't need them anymore. They will hide and go away. You can always bring them back if you need to. So then you would just add the group to the workflow. It's pretty simple. We go back to the workflow. So let's look at some settings on this. So we've got some general settings here that all of you have. This is a rather new one. If technicians are in the field, they're on their phone and they see something. In this scenario, if they see something that they need to fix, they can put that work request in and it will automatically assign to them. You may have that toggled off. That's a handy thing. And then our automatic due dates. This will also change the color of the work request. Expedite will be red. And you can change these time frames. These are just the ones we put in when we set up your account. So we do 1 day for expedite, so it'll be overdue after a day. Important was within 7 days, those are yellow. Standard are blue at 30 and low are gray at 60. Allowing the comments on the request, that's really like taking the action taken, it's journal notes and the messaging back and forth in one place. It really consolidates all that. My budget on the request, this is a new feature. If you have a budget code you want to put on there, it'll allow you to do that, have that field on. You can toggle that off. Show reporting fields, you probably do want category and reason on here. The categories like craft or the what we're doing, reason is why. You can toggle those on and off. You can even create your own. We typically turn off the scheduling fields for start and due date. We don't want the requesters always telling us when to start the work. You can do that on the back end on the full version of the work request. We have assets here. So if we have our fixed assets like boilers, chillers, rooftop units, air handler units, those types of things, we want to allow these on the full version of the request like you see on the back end. We may not want that on for our requesters. So they may not know the difference in those things. So we just leave that off typically. And then our transactions like our purchases and our labor. So that's what this is. Task books are for preventative maintenance. If we have steps that we want people to take for their PMs, that's what task books do. And then you can require the task books to be completed before technicians close those out. Reporting. This is where our categories come in. You may be familiar with the craft term in your prior software. This is the equivalent, but you can make them visible or not at any time. It's not going to yell at you and say it's already being used on a work order. So this is the parent category. If you wanted to turn all 9 of these off, you would just click on the I here to the right, and then they would not show anymore. They'll be on the historical work orders that are in the system if they're tied to that, but they will not be a choice moving forward. You can also click on the down arrow and turn things off individually if you want to, and then they will not show. All right. So that's the category. And then reason is like purpose code you may be familiar with, more why we are doing the work. We already have corrective versus preventative in here, but this is kind of a layer deeper. You can add to this list, which is where we're going to go to next in just a second. Again, same concept. You can turn those things on and off. That, like I have one of these that I created double, so maybe I don't want that one. All right, timeline. So it just shows the changes I made here on the workflow. Auto assign rules, this will be come into play after an approval has taken place. But let's just say every time, no matter what, I've got HVAC work orders that go to the same people. I could do an auto assign rule and just call this HVAC. And I could say, all right, it goes to my HVAC group, but I also want to add Bobby on here. So you can have multiple assignees. And then we just need to add the condition. So it's a category of HVAC. I could get down to the individual one, but this will do all 24. And so in this scenario, it would go to Bobby and the HVAC team. I would hit done here, and then I can add another condition. So let's say the location is there at the high school, and I'll just say, and remember, you can just start typing, and then high school. One of the common questions we get is like, I'm not seeing somebody in the list. Just start typing their name. Okay, so we've got our scenario here with HVAC for the high school. Now, every time when we approve it, it'll go right to the HVAC team and Bobby. So that's what the auto assign rule does. I'm going to cancel that. I don't need that in the system. So you can have multiple ones. Okay, so that is the workflow settings. Any questions on that? There's a lot there, but this is where everything really happens.
Ready for it? Okay, is what I would like to be sure. For example, like I said, our teachers put in work orders, and a lot of times Don and I see those even before the building principal sees them. And so we're trying to set it up so that any work order, for example, at the high school or at the middle school, if the requester is at the middle school, it goes to the point person at the middle school that kind of intercepts all the requests, so they can see what folks are are being asked at their building, and they could say, oh, no, we're not going to do that, or that request is unreasonable, declined. Or even if they say approved and they send it over here for Don and I to look at, we may say, well, I don't know where you get off approving that one. We're going to supersede that and decline it.
Yeah. So what you can do is just, you see how I have Anna as an approver here.
Mhm.
And if I wanted that to just be for the middle school, I would do a location restriction. And you can now middle, it's at the top there, but in this scenario now, she would be at one location that she could approve for.
Right. I was saying, even in that building, they may say, I
Mhm.
want new tiling in room 204. She may say, well, yeah, you need it, and approve it. But when it gets
Right.
over here, that we have the ability to decline it.
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I'm gonna remove that. I need Anna to approve for everything. I'm a small district, very small. Like in this one house. All right. So that's the workflow. Great question, Randy. All right, so let's fly through some things here. I talked about, we could turn off the visibility on categories and reasons. You can actually create your own. You couldn't do that before in the other system most of you were using. If you click on create category, you just have to select a parent. I'm going to give you one that that is not in here, but I think probably most of you would want. So I'm going to type grounds, GR, and then one would be playground, because you're probably doing playground inspections. And the code here just has to be maximum 4 in all caps. So I would probably do play. It's going to tell me my code exists because I have this in here, but that's one you could certainly add if we don't have it in here already for you. I know that's not one that generates from the system, so that could be one that you put in. And then any other ones that you want to put in that are not visible. So that's how you can add your categories. So up here, you can change that name at any time. Down here, this is the most important part. All right, so we'll do that. And then reasons. If you want to have more reasons here, you can see that we've got, like I double did mine. So there's athletics is already in here, but I went ahead and put one in. But you can add in your own into this. So why are we doing the work? I had one that I meant to add the other day and I completely forgot. So I got to go back and remember. But I'll put one in here. And again, your work orders, they're already going to be classified as corrective if a requester puts it in, and then preventative if they come off of a schedule. But this allows you to put things in a little more detailed manner on the reasons. The requester won't see the reason up front. It'll be a field on the full version of the work order. All right. Speaking of fields, if you want to create a custom field, one thing we did for you was we did this directions room number one off the bat when we created your account. This is something for Nancy and Tara to take note, because we're going to do that in some of these that we're going to create. But directions room number, you can tell what school to go to or what facility in your district, but where do they go to do that? So we create a directions room number field. The only thing on here, you can name it anything you want. The key is what's important, and you'll have examples in your system. So I've got directions underscore room underscore number. So if you have multiple words, you just need to connect them with an underscore. And I have a text here as the data type. You can do a checkbox, you can do a date, location. The selection would be a drop-down menu. Text is what we're using. User, you could select that. So I've got a text one here. I can allow multiple lines. I'm going to make this 40 characters and links. So we don't want war and peace on here written out. We just want probably a few lines or a few words. Where are we? Front of the building near the main entrance. Pretty simple. So we have that. And like we did for Arkansas, we have an academic and non-academic one. That's going to be a drop down menu. You can see an example there. They have to have that for the state requirement. So that will be in all of our Arkansas clients, but you can create your own custom fields to be on the work order form if you want to. Like I did journal notes for some folks, things like that. So now the next thing is, this is where it gets a little tricky. The word schema, I think, can be a little intimidating. The simple term for this is work order form layout, really. So how do we put in these custom fields? How do we make them visible? So I'm going to go into our default schema, and let's go down to that directions room number, because almost all of you will have this in there. You can even see it today. So what we've done is we need to show our field on the new request form. We probably want our requesters to be able to see that. So we have to make it visible. And we can do this by status if we want to, or we can do it by the workflow. So in this case, every time there's a new work request, I'm going to put that in here as new. It's going to show up. And then I want it required when it's everybody in the system, every user role that's in here. So I have a visible rule, and then I have a required rule. And then on the back end, when that is created, we're going to show it on the full request form. We want that, and then I want it for every role. So that's how we can make it viewable. I don't have to make things required. I can. If you want to do something on the back end, like, all right, I need that directions room number in, but I could do a status of review and closed, that on those two fields, it will then show up and then be required to be filled out in order to go to these. So it's takes a little bit to master, but you have one in here at least for the directions room number to go by, and then we can always answer your questions on this if you need to. So I'll hit done, and then if I want to just get rid of it, I'll just hit the trash can and it's gone. You can also just turn things off if you want to. Again, you can just take a field out and hit the trash can. Pencil to edit. So that's really kind of the nuts and bolts on things. We have just a few more minutes. I want to get through and put a request in. The other thing that I'm going to go through very quickly is PMs. I'm going to start with task books because that's our steps to take. We have a couple of different options here. We have a checklist, we have pass fail, and we have scoring. So on this one, this is a filter change for the air handler unit quarterly. You can see here, I've got a safety note. They can check the box on that on the work request that they've read it, and then they can go through these tasks and say that they've been completed or incomplete. So this is what it should look like on the work order form. I have a very high level header I can put in, that I can put more specific information below it. And that what that looks like when you're editing this, I've got a name, and I typically do, what it is we're doing, when we're doing it, the frequency, and what. So what are we doing and when, and then you could even do where if you wanted one, but probably this is going to be universal across your district. And then I have my checklist, pass, fail, or scoring. Scoring might be used for custodial cleanliness. Pass, fail could be used for any number of things. Checklist for the steps we need to take to do something. I've got a description, again, my safety note, and then I have my steps. I can make them required or optional. And then I have my more specific steps in there, and then I can even attach files to this if I want to. So when it generates, it'll have that on there. All right, now the actual PM, I'm going to click on schedules, and you may be used to the other system. There's 18 steps. We've condensed that down to 4, but you can see the title of mine. And so titling is very important. Again, I'm saying quarterly, when, what, are we doing filter changes and where FHS? So I can see that at a glance very easily. I've got 3 that have generated already. I've got a category of air handler unit. It's preventive. And then I have the school it's tied to. When is it next going to generate? I could deactivate the schedule. I can edit this, or I can generate it now. Maybe, we're in the summer months, so I don't have too much going on, right? So I could just go ahead and run now. I want that to generate ahead of time. I'm being sarcastic. You guys have a ton to do, especially when the students out. That's when the sleeves get rolled up and y'all got a lot to get done in the schools. But you could run now if you didn't want to wait till July 1st. It could kick out that work request and you could be ready to do it. So if we look at this, again, we've got our title here. I have a different workflow for PM. You don't have to. You can leave it at the maintenance one. Who's it coming from? What school? A category would be, what are we doing? Again, this is an air handler unit. It's PM. Who's it going to? So you can add actually multiple people onto the work order if you wanted to when it generates. You've got a budget code that's optional that just got added in, estimated cost, estimated hours, and then a summary. I just do a quick, like, this is what we're doing, 14 by 20 air filters every 90 days. And then I'll hit 2. You can hit next or the 2. This is where the task book comes in. You could add the task book to this so it generates with those tasks. Then any equipment or assets. And so I added my assets in. Some of you we imported assets for, others you may be adding them. And then finally, our frequency. When do we want this to generate? So mine started on April 1st. I want it to go ahead and have the time start on it, but make it due 3 days later. I've got a recurrence pattern of quarterly, so it's every 3 months. I could do it every month if I wanted to. And then I can tell when I want it to be generating. And then which month. So I'm going to have it skip. If it's white, you skip those months, maybe for seasonality. We would skip those. And then you can make it perpetual or a specific date for it to end on. And then do you want the next work order to generate even if the prior one hasn't been completed out yet? You can say yes or no, you hit save, and then you're done with your PMs. So that's how that works for PMs. Let's go through in the remaining time we have, and let's put in our work request so you can see this, how it works. So I'm in as a requester, and I need to create something. So let's put a new request in. And we're going to just do a maintenance one. So let's find one. I'm going to do, I need to add a different thing in here that I really want to do that I actually did this weekend, but let's do graffiti. Let's do that one. I did not do that this weekend. So let's say it's at the high school. Again, remember the last request. So someone spray painted graffiti on the outside, on the wall outside. And we're going to say south wall of the main gym. And they could take a picture of it. I'll have to do that. I'll have to take a picture of something spray painted, have it ready for next time. Not that I don't do graffiti, so I won't be creating it. It'll be found art. All right, so we'll hit save, but we could put pictures on there, PDFs, anything like that. So we'll save the request. It's going to go in. She's going to see it here as new. It's unassigned. All right, so then we have me as the admin. Now, I have this, again, I could change it to approved. I'm going to see these as the admin. Also, you can see in just a second, let's see if we can refresh it. All right, see, there's a work order that needs approval. So it went to Anna. She has a one-click approval. She can click on that. She sees it. She says, yes, please clean this up. She can put an emoji on here if she wanted to. All right, let's do that. And we'll hit save. So she's done her approval in this scenario. It's good to go. It's now approved. You can see that. And then go back to me as the admin. I'm going to just toggle off. You'll see it's approved now. I'm going to change this to queued. I'm going to assign it to my technician. Now I want to change the standard on the priority on this to expedite. I'm going to assign it to Peter. I'm also going to assign it to Pacer because I want you all to see that I can assign to multiple people. Again, if you have a long list, just start typing their name. Reason, we're just going to say vandalism like that. And, please clean this up for us. And then I'm going to directly tag Bobby on here. This is that direct tag thing. And even though he's not on the work request, it can send him a message to let him know that there's something that to be aware of. All right, so we'll hit save. So now it's been queued and assigned to Peter. It's now red because it's needs to be taken care of. We want that to be highly prioritized. I'm going to go to my technician. So maybe they're not on their full thing here. Maybe they are on an iPhone. So let's see what it looks like on an iPhone. Okay, so let's see what requests he's got. All right, there it is. So this simulates his finger. He's going to click on started on this, and he can just say on it. He doesn't have to type anything, but he's going to say on it. And let's say we've done the work. Okay, so we're going to change this to review. And he can put his time on here. Let's say it took him 30 minutes. He doesn't even have to type the number. He can add 15 or take 15 away. Let's add 50. Let's say it's 45 minutes. And then he can say cleaned up the graffiti. Wall is clean now. And this will go back to the requester. All right. Of course, there's other emojis you can use. If you're on your phone, he can do voice to text on this for what he did. All right, so we've got it now. He changes it to review in this scenario. It takes it off of his list. He can always see what he recently completed. There's that one right there. There's 119. Now me as the admin, I'm going to go and I want to it's under review. I need to add in, I'm going to change it to closed, but it's going to allow me to see more here. But also I'll go into the full version and then we'll wrap this up. We're a couple minutes over. But you can see all of the messages here on the comments. I've got to put my custom field needs to be filled out there. I'm going to go ahead and see, this is new. We just released this last week, but because labor is on there, it now shows if I have an expense, it'll take me down there. Maybe I had to get something to wash it with. So I went to Lowe's and I could say, graffiti wash. And we'll just say that was $25. And I could put a receipt on there. I'll add the purchase in. And then I'm going to go put Pacer's time in. He forgot to do it. So I'm going to add hours for Pacer and say that he did 30 minutes. Let's take that and then hit add labor. So we're good to go there now. All right. So that's closing it out. We'll go ahead and close it. We could put it on, the other thing we could do is we could put it on hold. We can move it backwards. We can also print this out if we needed to. We can move it under workflows, clone it. If we need to, we can change the priority here. It's all right there. So I'm gonna go ahead and close this out. I don't have to say anything else on this. I'm just gonna close it since we've already said it. And now my requester, she will see that this is done. And she could even message back and say if it's not cleaned up or something, but she gets all that notification. I just got it on my watch. We can see the complete request timeline here. See everything that we did from beginning to end, who created it and how we got through this. All right, one last thing I want to show you, and then I'm going to wrap up. I know we're a couple minutes over and your time's valuable. But check this one last thing out. So if I'm a technician, I talked about the QR code. I'm going to turn off my camera because it won't let me do both. But let's say we're walking throughout the school. We have our assets tagged with barcodes or we have QR codes. If I click this right here and you've already tagged your asset, it will bring up your camera. So we'll bring up the camera here. I'm going to do this one time. So I have it tied to my school and I have it tied to that air handler unit. I can click on select asset. I could create a request. I could view the asset or view what open requests are there for that. So then I can create this and be able to go through and tag that on a work order if I needed to. Okay, so that's the last thing I wanted to show you. So if you already have barcodes associated with your assets, then you can certainly do that. But anybody who's got that QR code up there, so pretty much everybody does except requesters, you'd be able to scan something. You could walk up to it and see what's going on there. So there's the tag for you to see that. We had some made up. All right, so that's everything I have today. I'm going to answer, Michelle, your question in just a second. I'm going to stop the recording and see if there's any other questions. I'm going to stop that.